There's a quiet ache many carry in silence, an ache that doesn't quite have a name but lives in the soul like a storm waiting to be understood. If you're the divine feminine on the twin flame journey, chances are you felt it. The intensity, the longing, the confusion, the wild outbursts of emotion that leave you questioning your sanity. Perhaps you've wondered why you feel so much more, why the depth of your love feels like both a gift and a curse. Why, in the eyes of others, even your twin, you appear to be the crazy one. But let's pause for a moment and breathe. There's nothing wrong with you. What you are feeling is not insanity, it is awakening. What appears to be chaos on the surface is, in truth, the divine feminine's sacred labor of birthing light into this connection. The twin flame journey is not ordinary, and neither are you. You are not broken. You are being broken open. This video is an invitation to explore why the divine feminine is often misunderstood, misjudged, or labeled as the crazy one in this path of divine union. From the very beginning, the divine feminine feels things in a way that is profound and all-consuming. It's not just about love, it's about knowing. She doesn't just think she has found someone special, she knows it. Deep in her bones, her soul remembers. This knowing comes with an ocean of emotions, waves that rise and fall with every energetic shift in the connection. One moment she feels ecstatic, overflowing with joy. The next, she is drowning in grief, even if there has been no clear trigger. To someone observing from the outside, this can seem irrational or unstable. To her own self, it can feel disorienting and exhausting. But here's the truth. The divine feminine is emotionally connected not just to her own heart, but to the entire energetic field of the connection. She is tuned into her twin soul, often sensing his feelings before he even becomes aware of them himself. She feels his sadness, his confusion, his fear. She feels the resistance, the push and pull, and every unspoken word. This energetic empathy creates an inner storm of emotions that have nowhere to go but out. Sometimes through tears, sometimes through anger, sometimes through withdrawal. Because the divine masculine is often still in the phase of avoidance, denial, or emotional shutdown, he may label her emotional expressions as too much. He may retreat, get defensive, or accuse her of being dramatic or irrational. In truth, he is simply overwhelmed by the mirror she holds up to him, one that reveals feelings he is not yet ready to face. For the divine feminine, this depth of emotion is not a weakness. It is part of her spiritual gift. She is the heart of the connection. She is the one who feels the divine pulse of their union, long before the masculine is ready to hear it. This gift can feel like a burden at times, but it is also her strength. To support herself through this intensity, the divine feminine must ground herself regularly. Meditation, journaling, spending time in nature, and breath work are not luxuries. They are necessary tools for balance. She must create a safe space for her emotions to be expressed without judgment. Not everything she feels needs to be acted upon, but everything she feels does deserve to be acknowledged. In almost every twin flame journey, the awakening begins with the divine feminine. She starts to feel the shift. She senses the significance. She knows, often very early on, that something profound is happening. The divine masculine, on the other hand, may not even be consciously aware of what's unfolding. His awareness comes later, often through crisis, reflection, or loss. This imbalance in awareness creates one of the greatest tensions in the early stages of the journey. The feminine is already in motion, already receiving signs, already having spiritual experiences tied to this connection. She sees repeating numbers. She hears songs that speak directly to her soul. She has dreams, visions, inner knowings. And when she tries to share these things, she is often met with skepticism, silence, or rejection. To be the one who awakens first is to carry the weight of the unknown without a roadmap. It is to try and speak a language no one else around you seems to understand. The frustration, the longing to be understood, the need to explain what seems inexplicable. It all builds, and when those attempts to communicate are misunderstood or dismissed, she may begin to question her own sanity. The world does not often make space for the mystical. So, when a woman begins to awaken to a spiritual truth through love, especially love that defies logic and time, she is often met with disbelief. And still she continues. She cannot unsee what her soul has seen. She cannot unfeel what her heart knows to be true. This early awakening calls her into deep spiritual responsibility. She must learn to walk alone for a while. She must learn to trust what she feels, even when no one else validates it. This loneliness can lead to breakdowns, emotional spirals, anxiety, insomnia, panic attacks, especially when she tries to explain the twin flame connection to others who are not spiritually open. But this phase is sacred. It is the fire that purifies. It is what teaches her discernment, faith, and surrender. Over time, she learns to stop looking for external validation and begins to trust the wisdom of her own soul. The crazy fades when she stops trying to convince others and instead focuses on nurturing her own truth. The divine feminine doesn't just show up in her twin's life to love him. She shows up to awaken him. And this is not always a gentle task. Her presence alone triggers parts of the divine masculine that he has spent years, maybe lifetimes, avoiding. Her love, her intensity, her emotional honesty, they all shine a light into his shadow. They stir his unresolved wounds. She mirrors back to him his deepest fears of intimacy, of loss, of vulnerability, of not being good enough. And because he's not ready to face these truths, he pushes her away. Or worse, he projects his own discomfort back onto her. He may call her unstable, too sensitive, too emotional. He may tell her she's overreacting, that she's imagining things. All of this is a defense mechanism, a way to avoid looking at the parts of himself that she is forcing him to confront. But the feminine is not trying to harm him. She is loving him in the only way her soul knows how, truthfully. She doesn't pretend. She doesn't mask. She feels it all and reflects it back, sometimes with more intensity than even she can understand. Being a mirror is not easy. It means being misunderstood, pushed away, or labeled negatively. But the mirror is what initiates the transformation. Without her, he remains asleep. Without her, the connection stagnates. To carry this mirror with grace, the divine feminine must learn how to stand firm in her truth without needing to be understood. She must allow him to project without absorbing it. She must remember that she is not here to rescue him or convince him, only to be a clear reflection. This requires strength, clarity, and emotional maturity. It means knowing when to step back, when to protect her own energy, when to observe without reacting. Over time, as she refines her inner stability, the energy she sends out becomes less reactive and more magnetic, allowing him to return of his own free will when he is ready. In a world that prioritizes logic and control, the divine feminine walks a different path. She leads with the heart. She trusts intuition over reason. She follows feelings over facts. To the outside world, this can look like recklessness. To those rooted in the mind, her actions seem impulsive or irrational. She might feel guided to reach out, even when there has been silence. She might experience sudden surges of emotion that call her to express herself. She may make choices based on dreams, synchronicities, or inner guidance that can't be explained logically. And when those choices don't make sense to others, she gets labeled as unstable. But her guidance is real. It is sacred. The divine feminine has access to a deeper current, a spiritual intelligence that flows through the heart. Her sensitivity is not confusion, it is a compass. The problem is, she is often surrounded by voices, internal and external, that tell her she is wrong to feel so deeply. This dissonance creates self-doubt. She starts to second-guess her intuition. She questions whether she imagined the connection, whether she read too much into it, whether she made it all up. This inner conflict can lead to anxiety, emotional exhaustion, and breakdowns. To heal this, she must reclaim her inner authority. She must stop seeking permission to feel what she feels. She must build a relationship with her own heart so deep and trusting that she no longer needs anyone else to validate it. This is a return to sovereignty. She also needs to find spaces that honor her heart-based way of being. Whether through spiritual community, energy healing, or quiet reflection, the feminine must come home to herself. Not to change how she navigates, but to honor it. When she trusts her own rhythm, the external world loses its power to define her. One of the heaviest burdens the divine feminine carries is the responsibility of clearing ancestral wounds. This journey is not just about romantic love. It's about healing lineages. It's about ending cycles of abandonment, silence, suppression, and self-betrayal that have passed through generations of women. This work is invisible to most, but she feels it in her body, in her triggers, in her grief, in the moments she can't explain why she's crying or why her heart aches so deeply. Much of what she's feeling isn't just hers, it's the inherited pain of the women who came before her. As she awakens, she begins to see these patterns. She notices the ways she people pleases, overgives, or silences herself to avoid rejection. She sees how she has been taught to minimize her power, dim her light, or prioritize others at the expense of her own truth. And she makes the courageous choice to stop repeating those patterns. This healing is messy. It's raw. It's filled with emotional release, body tension, inner resistance, and moments of feeling completely unhinged. And yet it is sacred. With every wound she brings into the light, she creates space for something new. She births freedom, not just for herself, but for those who came before and those who will come after. This kind of soul work is misunderstood because it's unseen. It's not measured in timelines or achievements. It doesn't follow logic. So when she is deep in the process of releasing inherited trauma, she may be seen as unstable or over-emotional, but in truth, she is becoming whole. To support herself in this phase, the feminine must allow herself to grieve, to scream, to rest, to honor her pain without needing to fix it right away. Healing is not linear. It is cyclical. It moves in waves. The more she honors these waves, the more peace she begins to embody. When separation occurs in the twin flame journey, when communication stops, when the divine masculine pulls away, or when the connection goes silent, the divine feminine doesn't just feel heartbreak. She feels something far deeper. It is as if part of her soul has been torn away. The pain is not ordinary. It is soul deep, echoing through lifetimes. And to the untrained eye, to those who do not understand the sacredness of this connection, it can seem like an overreaction. But this pain is not born of neediness or obsession. It is grief. True, spiritual grief. The kind that arises when the soul is stripped bare, when everything that once felt divine is suddenly gone, unreachable, silent. To others, she may look like she's spiraling, crying over someone she barely knew in the physical world, desperately trying to understand what happened, unable to move on the way people expect. But what she is feeling is not the loss of a person. It is the disconnection from the mirror of her own soul. And that is a kind of death that defies logic. Her emotions surge, her thoughts loop. She questions everything. Did she imagine it? Did she do something wrong? Why does it feel like something inside her is dying? In this space of separation, the divine feminine is taken into the underworld of her soul. She is stripped of illusions. She faces abandonment wounds, fears of unworthiness, past life traumas, and the haunting echo of love lost. It is a sacred descent, one that many mistake for madness. But this descent is necessary. It breaks open her ego attachments. It forces her to surrender control. It invites her into the deepest form of self-love she has ever known. Not the kind that is conditional or performative, but the kind that holds her through grief, that wraps her in compassion even when nothing makes sense. To survive this depth, she must allow the death. She must not rush to escape it or numb it. She must sit with the ache, breathe through the loss, and find the part of herself that still exists beneath the pain. This is the crucible of rebirth. What feels like the end is the beginning of her emergence into divine sovereignty. And in time, when she begins to rise from these ashes, she discovers something astonishing. Her soul never truly lost him. The connection was never outside of her. It was always within. The separation was not a punishment. It was an initiation. The divine feminine often feels like the only one doing the work. She's the one seeking answers, diving into her shadows, exploring her inner child wounds, and learning how to love herself. Meanwhile, the divine masculine appears distant, distracted, emotionally unavailable, or even resistant to change. This imbalance can create deep frustration. She may wonder, why am I the one breaking apart? Why am I carrying the weight of this journey? Why do I feel like I'm doing all the inner work for both of us? But what she doesn't always realize is that her healing is the very thing that shifts the entire connection. The work she does on herself, every pattern she breaks, every boundary she learns to hold, every layer of self-love she embodies, sends ripples through the energetic bond. She is the catalyst, the lighthouse, the sacred fire that initiates transformation. When she heals her abandonment wound, she releases the energetic cords of neediness that once pushed him away. When she claims her worth, she stops chasing and starts attracting. When she forgives herself, she lightens the karmic load of their shared soul path. And even though the masculine may not understand this consciously, he feels it. He responds to it, sometimes subtly, sometimes dramatically. This is where the power of the feminine often goes unseen. Because her work is internal, it's easy for the world, and even her twin, to overlook it. But it is this very work that lays the foundation for union. Not union, as in a fairy tale romance, but union as in spiritual alignment, where both beings rise in their own sovereignty and meet each other from a space of truth. Of course, this requires patience. And patience, for the divine feminine, is not easy. She has seen the vision, she has felt the love, she knows what's possible, but she must release her timeline. She must allow the masculine to awaken in his own time, in his own way, without interference. That doesn't mean she waits passively. It means she turns inward, focuses on her soul mission, cultivates joy, and lives fully. She becomes whole, not to earn his love, but because she deserves wholeness. And in that wholeness, the energy between them shifts. The masculine feels the pull. The union begins to take form, not because she forced it, but because she embodied it. That is her power. Quiet, steady, transformative. So why is the divine feminine so often seen as the crazy one in the twin flame journey? Because she feels more, sees more, awakens first, mirrors truth, speaks from the heart, heals deeply, and dares to love without conditions in a world that has forgotten how.